Hey everyone, it's Chris Clark with DiscGolf.Law. Over the past year, two things brought the PDGA's insurance coverage into the spotlight. I'm going to give a brief summary of these two events and tell you what we have learned about PDGA sanctioned insurance coverage. In July of 2023, at the PCS Open in Norway, five-time world champion Paige suffered a serious injury during a practice round. Paige slipped while crossing a bridge on the course and broke 3 bones in her left foot. But keep in mind, this was not during competition, but it was during an official practice day prior to the start of the event. Like any insurance policy, the PDGA's insurance coverage has limitations. Many of them are described in one way or another on the PDGA's website. Neither the PDGA nor the PDGA Europe provide liability insurance coverage for events outside the USA and Canada. Obviously, this event was held in Europe. It was not in the US or Canada. And so when I learned about this, I assumed that the PDGA would not provide insurance coverage for Paige's injury, but to the PDGA's credit, PDGA insurance coverage was in place for this event. The language the PDGA uses on its website says PDGA insurance can include medical costs for injuries and property damage sustained on tournament grounds during sanctioned play and activities that directly support sanctioned play. Now, as most of you likely know, Paige recently has returned to touring and earned an emotional first place finish at the 2024 Portland Open. In an appearance on Ultiworld's Upshot podcast, Paige, for the first time, spoke publicly about her experience with the PDGA's insurance coverage. In diagnosing her injury, Paige's doctors recommended surgery, which was scheduled for July 25th, 2023. Payment for her surgery was required in advance. The surgery costs amounted to around $78,100, and that was just for the surgery. That did not include ancillary costs like x-rays and physical therapy, medications, etc. With respect to her over $78,000 medical expense, the PDGA reimbursed Paige the maximum amount under its policy limits, which was $25,000. Fortunately, unlike most touring professional disc golfers, Paige had her own health insurance policy in place. However, Paige's personal health insurance policy paid only $80. Paige, after the reimbursement from the PDGA and her personal health insurance policy, paid the remaining medical expenses herself, which, based on the information that she provided on the Upshot, had to have been well over $53,000 out of her own pocket. Now, I had lots of questions when I first learned this news. First, who has over $50,000 in available cash lying around? I know I certainly don't, and I expect most people watching this video don't either. Second, the maximum coverage under the PDGA's insurance policy is $25,000. There aren't many injuries for which you can get treated in a hospital, at least in the United States, for $25,000. Certainly not if they involve surgery, rehab, physical therapy, etc. I wondered to myself, what if Paige's injury had involved a spinal or neurological injury or caused paralysis or some other career-ending condition? Which brings me to my next point. We haven't talked about the fact that Paige was unable to perform her job for almost a year. Obviously, professional disc golfer income comes from a variety of sources, and some of those don't necessarily involve winning or cashing in tournaments, but that would certainly not be the case for an amateur player. If this had happened to an amateur or even an up-and-coming professional, or really most people that participate in PDGA sanctioned events, this would likely have amounted to a financially devastating crisis. So on the Upshot, Paige said it would be nice to get made whole for all the money she's had to spend out of pocket, but that more importantly, she'd like to figure out what steps need to be taken to make sure this doesn't happen to other disc golfers in the future. Paige wondered whether there's a way sponsors or the Disc Golf Pro Tour could provide insurance to professional players. She also suggested that creating a players union to advocate on behalf of players should be considered. She said it's long overdue and definitely needed. Okay, now the second thing that brought the PDGA's insurance coverage under scrutiny recently was the PDGA being informed by their insurance carrier in late 2023 that its event insurance would not be renewed for 2024. The PDGA had difficulty finding an insurance policy to meet their coverage needs and were facing an insurance premium increase of nearly $500,000. So in light of this, the PDGA said to itself, if only we had a connection to someone in the insurance industry. The PDGA had to look no further than the chair of its board of directors. Nate spent several weeks researching through what I gather is his former employer, the Ledgestone Group, and he was able to find a higher quality insurance option at less than half the price of the PDGA's next best option. The PDGA is a nonprofit tax-exempt organization, and the IRS takes conflicts of interest in these types of organizations very seriously. Striking deals with related parties can raise red flags, particularly concerns about conflicts of interest. Now, the PDGA anticipated this and released a statement on their website. This new insurance arrangement was vetted by the PDGA staff and board of directors. We understand that the first question some members might ask is, isn't this a conflict of interest? The answer to that is no. It is worth noting, Nate Heinold stood to receive a commission in excess of $15,000 for brokering this insurance deal, but to avoid the appearance of impropriety, Nate declined the commission and received no financial benefit from the transaction whatsoever. Now, sometimes we get comments from viewers that we're too hard on the PDGA. The purpose of discussing this topic isn't to pick on the PDGA. It is great that the PDGA offers insurance coverage at all. It's also great that the decision was made to have PDGA insurance in place at the 2023 PCS Open, and that it covered not only injuries during the tournament, but also during practice days. If this coverage hadn't been in place, Paige would have been out of pocket an additional $25,000 potentially. I don't have enough personal information to do my own analysis of whether having the chair of the PDGA's board obtain insurance coverage on its behalf amounts to a conflict of interest, but it sounds like Nate Heinold didn't personally benefit from the transaction, and the work that he put in likely saved the PDGA a significant amount of money. One reason that organizations invite people to participate on their board of directors is because they have relevant professional experience they can contribute for the benefit of the organization. So taking the PDGA at its word, it sounds like this was the right move. My question's for you. Is $25,000 a sufficient policy limit to cover injuries sustained on the disc golf course at PDGA events? Should that answer be different for pros versus amateurs? And what about spectators and vendors? Should they also be covered under this policy? Is Paige right? Is a disc golf players union the answer? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.